Of all the important movements throughout film history, one of the most overlooked is that of film noir. In fact, many people do not even know film noir to be a film movement at all, but instead see it simply as a genre. But to see how film noir's unique visual style and revolutionary storytelling has transcended all genres and left a lasting impression on cinema, we must look back to the origins of the movement, starting all the way back in 1941 with what critic Paul Schrader calls the first film noir, John Huston's cinematic classic, The Maltese Falcon. Like all great cinematic movements, film noir was born out of existential crisis. In its case, noir was born out of a loss of American idealism following the historical devastations of financial depression and World War. Film noir, as critic John Belton notes in his book American Cinema, American Culture, represents a remarkable epistemological shift in America's self-conceptualization. A shift easily seen in the juxtaposition of pre- and post-war American cinema. Unlike the preceding classic Hollywood style, marked by fantastical high-key lighting, wide camera angles, and conventional staging, film noir was dark, harshly lit, and confined. Shadows were prominent and often used to symbolize the ignorance of the characters. Noir also traded in rural-based, happy-ending linear storytelling for a darkly realistic, yet still auteuristic take on urban woes. Often taking place in the city, noirs portrayed paranoia and hopelessness. This intense existentialism and surrealism serves as a major theme throughout the movement. As Belton states, film noir was a realization that, coupled with the trauma of war and disillusionment of the post-war period, served to smash the utopian fantasy world of 1930s ideology. Put simply, film noir has a distinct style. It is dark. This style emerged from the American hard-boiled novels of the early 20th century. The Maltese Falcon itself came from Dashiell Hammett's 1929 novel of the same name, which follows Detective Sam Spade as he attempts to clear his name in a series of murders and obtain the treasured Maltese Falcon. After the Maltese Falcon and throughout the movement, the gritty detective story would remain the staple of the film noir. But noir is quickly spread to all genres, including, as critic Janny Place notes, westerns, melodramas, and even musicals. These new films made initial audiences uneasy, but they also provided a cathartic transition to cinematic styles, characters, and plots more familiar to their modern urban lives. And when film critics of post-war France finally confronted this influx of darkly subversive films, they knew that they were witnessing something important, and labeled the movement film noir, or black film. Finally, the movement had a name and identity, but ironically, it was this very act of identification that brought about a new sense of self-awareness to the style and ultimately put an end to the classical film noir movement.
The influence of film noir, however, is still felt today. The movement began a huge switch in the ways in which gender is portrayed on film, for both men and women. The male leads in noirs were typically individuals in professions, often detectives, facing social alienation. These anti-hero characters were typically confused and morally ambiguous towards the law, but stayed true to their own code of personal ethics. In The Maltese Falcon, Spade bends the law to get the truth, but always holds the truth and what's right above everything else. Spade is loyal to his partner because he feels he has to be, and turns Miss O'Shaughnessy over to the police despite his feelings for her.
When a man's partner's killed, he's supposed to do something about it. It doesn't make any difference what you thought of it. He was your partner, and you're supposed to do something about it.
Much of the dialogue in film noir is smart, fast-paced, and cutting. Spade, along with the other characters in the movie, use great verbal wit in conversation.
I like to talk.
Better and better. I distrust a close-mouthed man. He generally picks the wrong time to talk and says the wrong things. Talking something you can't do judiciously unless you keep it practiced.
As Belton notes, both the writer of the detective fiction and the detective hero controlled their words by controlling language. Spade is able to recognize the deceit of the other characters and uses monosyllabic directness to cut through the web of lies spun by everyone he encountered. Masculinity is also portrayed from the other side as well. The character of Joel Cairo has often been speculated to be homosexual, although this could never be explicitly stated. The Hollywood production codes of the 1940s were a set of rules meant to limit what a film could and cannot say or do. Such prohibited topics included homosexuality, along with nudity, interracial sexual activity, incest, rape, and abortion. However, film noir filmmakers still had these ideas present in their films. They just disguised them. In the novel version of The Maltese Falcon, Joel Cairo is overtly homosexual, but when making the film, filmmakers had to get creative. Huston worked around the code to hint at Joel Cairo's sexual orientation. In the film, Cairo is well-mannered, charming, and sensitive. He wears a perfumed handkerchief in his pocket and bursts into tears when he discovers the Falcon to be a fake, and consequently is not very well respected by the other male characters, often being the victim to their verbal and physical assaults.
When you're slapped, you'll take it and like it.
This kind of dichotomy of gender representation for men is very problematic, but it is arguably more problematic for women. According to critic Janie Place, there exist two types of women in film noir, the nurturing woman and the spider woman. The nurturing woman is loyal, gives love and understanding, asks very little in return, and is generally very passive and static. The spider woman, on the other hand, is explicitly sexual and often explicitly violent. Both are defined in relation to men and by their sexuality or lack thereof. However, although the women in film noir are still sexualized, it is, as Place puts it, the first time in film where women are not completely powerless. In fact, women are active, intelligent, and powerful, ultimately deriving their power from their sexuality. The nurturing woman in The Maltese Falcon is Effie Perrine, Sam's secretary. She loyally sticks by Sam Spade throughout the whole movie, even as he is extremely condescending and rude to her.
Sure in, Effie, darling. Sure in.
She is not overtly sexual, and she offers a connection to the more safe and static world. Bridget O'Shaughnessy is the classic femme fatale, or as Place calls her, the Spider Woman.
You'll want to see her anyway. She's a knockout.
O'Shaughnessy is deceptive, explicitly sexual, and ultimately leads Spade into trouble. We meet her as Miss Wonderly as we see her come into Spade's office asking for help to find her sister, but we soon learn that that is not her real name and not her real problem.
We didn't exactly believe your story, Miss... what is your name, Wonderly or LeBlanc?
It's really O'Shaughnessy.
O'Shaughnessy constantly lies to get what she wants. She acts solely in her best interest and doesn't really care who she hurts. We learn that she killed Sam's partner, Miles Archer, and feels no remorse until she is caught. And when she is, she begs Spade to forgive her and not to turn her over to the police. She begs him under the guise of love, but despite Spade's feelings, her attempt is ultimately unsuccessful. The sequence echoes a common theme in film noirs. Place argues that her original transgression in film noir is her ambition, but since she is a woman, that freedom must be controlled and confined. The ultimate test of men in noir is to resist the sexual allure of the Spider Woman and destroy it, symbolically or literally. Miss O'Shaughnessy reaches her symbolic demise in the end when she is escorted into the elevator, the bars close on her, and the elevator lowers, symbolically representing the bars of a jail cell and the downward descent to hell. But she is not alone in this. Sam Spade soon follows down the stairs, representing his own descent before the screen fades to black and the credits roll. The movement of film noir began in 1941 with The Maltese Falcon, and arguably came to an end with Orson Welles' 1958 Touch of Evil, and the subsequent French identification of the movement. This identification, establishing conventions for the movement, brought about a sense of self-awareness. As Schrader would argue, since people were no longer being affected by the war and transitioning back into society, the films did not have their intended effect. This means that even though we watched a film noir movie, we were not affected by it as the people who watched it for the first time. We have completely different experiences. There have been many films since then that play on aspects of noir. However, since they are attempting to mimic classic noir such as The Maltese Falcon, they are no longer considered film noir. These films would be considered neo-noir. So although film noir died in 1958, it lives on through the classics and through the imitators who attempt to use the techniques mastered by filmmakers in the 1940s and 50s.
Harry, what is it? The stuff that dreams are made of.